morning. My name is Tony Byrne. I've been in our business for 12 years as a recruiter, a trainer, and an owner. And today we're going to talk about the placement process. Now, the process itself is very basic. It's the problems that we solve with the process that are complicated. Now, a trainer measures his success in the results of the people that he trains. And over the last 10 years, recruiters that I've trained as my own employees have billed over $25 million. I know that what I teach works, but it takes hard work and discipline. What I'm not going to teach you today are shortcuts, tricks, quick fixes, glib phrases, because I know they don't work. I'm going to teach you tactics and strategy. Everything I teach you today, you will be able to take back to your desks with you and use to make placements. Now, I'd like to see the hands raised of everyone in this room who is in this business because they want to make a lot of money. Good. I sure hope you made that decision, because there are a lot easier ways to make $30,000 a year than to come into this business. Don't come into this business to earn 30. Come in to earn 50 or 75 or, God forbid, 100. Later on today, we're going to talk about what the big billers bill, and you can earn a lot of money on what the big billers bill. Now, if you want to make a lot of money, if you want to be successful, I'm sure that you have role models who are successful. Perhaps you've read books about people who are successful. What are some of the characteristics that these people have in common? What is one? Terry?
A drive for professional excellence.
Yes, they have drive. What else? Mike?
Positive attitude.
PMA, they are believers, optimists. Yes, Bill?
A high energy level.
Very high energy level. They can last much longer than normal people. Mike?
Big egos.
Big egos. They believe in themselves, you bet. Carol?
They're enthusiastic.
Very enthusiastic, and enthusiasm sells. Remember that. Kathy?
Self-starters.
Yes, nobody has to roll them out of bed in the morning. Ken?
They need to have professional ethics.
Ethics? Well, wait a minute. I'm sure we all know people who are unethical, who are successful, but you'll never meet anyone unethical who builds a career in this business. Never. Mark, characteristics successful people have in common.
Extend their goals.
They push them out further. That's right. That's why they're always working towards goals. The goals are always out in front of them. Ken, characteristic.
They're planners.
And that's how they get to the goals. They are planners. Paul, a characteristic successful people have in common.
Time managers.
Time managers. That's why they get so much more done than most of us. Yes, John.
They're creative people.
Paints pictures, writes plays.
No, they're problem solvers.
Problem solvers. They can find 5 or 6 different ways in and out of a problem. John.
Risk takers.
You mean riverboat gamblers?
No, not at all.
Calculated risk takers. That's right. Lynn.
They have desire.
Incredible desire. You know, given 5 people with the ability to succeed, the one who is going to make it is the one who wants it badly enough. Because he wants it badly enough, he has a consequent willingness to pay the price. And just to leap forward in our day, what is the price for success in our business? Hard work. That's it. It is hard work. Now, are they lucky? Successful people, are they lucky, Brian?
They make their own luck.
They look lucky, don't they? You just can't be lucky that often. That's right, they make their own luck. Do they ever fail, Ken?
Yes, they do.
You bet they do. That's what happens when you keep trying all the time. Of course you're going to fail. And what happens when they fail?
Pick themselves up.
They get back up. They are resilient, and they are always learning from their mistakes. These are some of the characteristics that successful people have in common. I want you to tuck those away, because as we go through the day, we're going to build on those. We're going to find out that a good recruiter has all of those and many more. Before we start talking about the recruiting process itself, the placement process, I want to discuss 4 building blocks on which we are going to build a good recruiter. Building block number 1, attitude. You are who you think you are. You know, when I go around a room of 100 recruiters and I say, tell me quick, what is your billing goal for this year? What number do you think 9 out of 10 recruiters tell me? What number? Do you think that's because 9 out of 10 recruiters in this country have a maximum billing potential of $100,000? No, sir. It's because they go to work for a firm and they see the guy sitting next to them saying $100,000 a year, and they hear everybody else saying $100,000, and they figure, well, that's what the job is. It's $100,000 a year. And they set a goal for themselves of $100,000, and that's what they build. Whether they get there in July or November, it becomes a self-fulfilling goal. It becomes a ceiling that they can't push beyond. Well, by the end of today, I want to take your goals and rip them up and move them higher. You are capable of billing more than you're billing now. Most recruiters are capable of billing 2 or 3 times what they're billing now. You are who you think you are. You just have to know how to do it, that's all. Attitude. You sound like who you think you are. One of the toughest things to do is to get a new recruiter to say, this is going to cost you $5,000 or $10,000 to a client company. The new recruiter would be much more comfortable saying to that client company, this is going to cost you $1,000. Isn't that true? Sure. Well, guess what? The client company thinks it's worth $10,000. How do we know that? We know that because client companies spend $10 billion a year on search fees. That's how we know it. They think it's worth $10,000. You ever figure out how many hours it takes to conduct a search? Any of you guys? 12 to 15 hours to conduct a search. Let's say that you spend 20 hours actually doing that search and you get paid a $10,000 fee. Math majors, how much are you getting paid per hour? $500 an hour. You know any attorneys who get paid $500 an hour? Very few. You know any accountants who get paid $500 an hour? I don't know of any. But when the client company pays you $10,000 for 20 hours of work, they're paying you at the rate of $500 an hour. They value the service highly. I want you to value it just as highly. Attitude. You're here because you're special. You're here because someone hired you to come into this business. Someone who knows that 999 out of 1,000 people can't make it in this business. It's too tough. It's too competitive, but you're here. That means that you are special. That means that you are smart enough, clear enough, high enough energy, competitive enough to succeed in this business. You're special. Now, you're going to meet companies. You're going to meet candidates who are going to tell you how to do your job. Here's how I want to work with you, recruiter. No, sir. Walk away from candidates and companies that are unwilling to work your way. They're paying you for your expertise. Let them let you demonstrate your expertise. One of the most distinguishing characteristics of the big billers is that they have maximum control over the company and over the candidate. Attitude. You're capable of billing more than you are. You're special. You know what you're doing. Building block number 2, capacity for hard work. The harder you work, the more you'll earn. It is a straight line. Now, of course, there's always somebody out there listening to me who says, well, what he really means is that we should work smart, right? Let me tell you how you get to $100,000 a year in billing. You do it by working hard, by working 9, 10 hours a day, sometimes 6 days a week. You know how you get to $250,000 a year in billing? By working smart, hard. You never stop working hard. You get to 20 send-outs a month first, and then while you're still at 20 send-outs a month, you start working at the on the send-out to placement ratio. The recruiter who thinks that now that he's billing 100 or 150, he can start working fewer hours is going to fail. Now, you make your money on the telephone, not shuffling paper. And I mean on 5-minute calls, not half-hour calls. Yes, half an hour on the phone with a candidate that we're going to present to a company. Yes. Half an hour on the phone when we're taking a job order. Yes. Half an hour on the phone with a client that wants to shoot the breeze, because a client is everything in this business. But all other calls, 5 minutes on and off. Now, there is paperwork to be done. Mountains of it. Do it in the morning. Do it at lunchtime. Do it after you plan at night. Just don't do it during the prime time hours of the day. Under capacity for hard work, one last point. I got bad news for you. There is homework to be done every single night. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, Friday and Saturday we get off, and Sunday night. Homework to be done because you are competing with people who are talking to candidates at night. And if they are and you're not, they're speaking to more candidates than you are. Law of averages says they'll beat you to the good ones. They'll make more placements than you do. And there's another practical reason that we have to talk to candidates at home at night. What is it? Some of them just can't talk at work. That's right, just can't talk at work. Capacity for hard work. Building block number 3, listening. Harvard Business Review says 80% of your job is listening. Tune in to the tone of voice, the hidden objection. Don't interrupt candidates and employers. When the person on the other end of the phone is talking, don't be thinking about what you're going to say next. If you just listen, that candidate will tell you how to place him, and that company will tell you how to make the placement. And of course, that sounds real simple, doesn't it? Just listen. Well, I'll tell you, listening is hard work. You want to burn calories? Try keeping your mouth closed for a whole morning. It is hard to do. Don't feed answers. Experienced guys, tell me if this sounds familiar. You're talking to a candidate who earns $40,000, and you say, what's the minimum amount of money that you would accept to change positions? 44, 45? Or you're talking to a candidate who is about to give notice, and you say, is there anything your company could do to keep you? You know, what if they match the offer? Or what if they put you over in Larry's group? Feeding answers, don't do it. You new guys, you are great listeners because you don't know what you're talking about. And you ask a question and you listen for the answer. And what happens? You learn fast. And 2-3 months into a new recruiter's career in this business, you hear him start feeding answers. He says to the employer, what's the title for this position? Project engineer. Oh, you want someone to do this, this, and this. Or he says to the candidate, what do you do? I'm a senior tax accountant. Oh, you mean you do this, this, and this. Don't feed. Listen. And if you miss something, have them repeat it. If you don't understand something, have them explain it. Building block number 4, planning. Planning is the key to a well-executed day. When I go into a search firm to increase productivity, I don't work on the 9-hour day. I work on the 1-hour day. Because if I can get a recruiter to plan, I can double his number of phone calls, which is going to double the number of candidates he's working with, double the number of job orders, which theoretically should double the number of send-outs he gets. And of course, if I can double the number of send-outs, I can double or better the number of placements that he makes. Now, planning properly done takes 1 hour. I used to teach plan in half an hour, but you can't plan in half an hour. It takes an hour. 20 minutes to plan marketing, 20 minutes to plan recruiting, 20 minutes to plan follow-up. Follow-up is setting interviews, briefing, debriefing candidates and companies, checking references, closing, negotiating, and interviewing. And it's that follow-up activity that breaks a recruiter's concentration. See, a recruiter is marketing or a recruiter is recruiting, gets one of these incoming debrief calls, handles it for 20 minutes, forgets where he was, and the whole day is shot. Well, if all your calls are written out, you can come in, hit the phones in the morning, handle those spontaneous interruptions, go right back to whatever it was you were doing. Now, typically, recruiters are poor planners. Why? Because it's boring. Thank you. That's right. Recruiters like to be where the action is, where the excitement is, which is on the phone. But big billers plan all the time, every day. You know why? Because they can't get their volume of send-outs handled and their volume of telephone calls done unless they're all planned the night before. You see, a big biller spends more time in a day just setting up interviews than most of us spend in the office, period. Just setting up interviews. I have met recruiters, office support recruiters, who get 100 send-outs a month. Yeah, she's an animal, but she gets 100 send-outs a month. Now, of course, the most send-outs I've ever seen an executive-level recruiter get is about 45, and I'd be thrilled to death if you get 20. But even to get 20, you have to plan so that you get not only those send-outs done, but all the other activity that's going to go along with it, the results of those send-outs. All right, on those 4 building blocks, attitude, capacity for hard work, listening, and planning, we are going to build a good recruiter. Ready? Ready. Class starts. Let's talk about the 30 steps of the placement process. I am going to list them. We're going to zoom through them, and then we're going to go back and discuss them one by one. Step number 1, take a complete job order. And I emphasize complete, because if it's not complete, you're going to wind up having to go back to the employer several times during the course of this search to get more information. If it's not complete, you're not even sure you should be working, or I'm not sure you should be working it. Step number 2, make a recruiting plan. Recruiting plan is going to tell us who are we looking for and where do we go to look to find him. Step number 3, do a file search. We can find that candidate in the files. Let's do it. Let's not overcomplicate it if we don't have to. But unable to find them in the files, we now go to step number 4, which is name gathering, digging, fishing, sourcing. This is identifying candidates for our position who are not in our files. Number 5, we're going to contact that candidate. Number 6, profile the candidate. Now, very often, 5 and 6 are going to be the same step. But sometimes 5 and 6 are not the same step. We contact them this afternoon. We profile them this evening. We've come up with a candidate who is qualified and interested. So number 7, we are going to present that candidate to the employer. Employer likes what he hears. So number 8, set up the first interview. First interview is going to take place tomorrow. So number 9, we are going to prep the candidate for the first interview. Now, folks, from now on, I want the word interview to equal win in your brains. Every time you think of interview, I want it to equal win, because we're going to prepare our candidate to go in and win, not just cope the way most candidates do. Step number 10, we are going to prep the employer for the first interview. You know, recruiters spend a lot of time prepping the candidate to meet the employer's needs, and almost no time preparing the employer to meet the candidate's needs. Candidate has needs too. He has personal needs. He has professional needs. Let's prepare that employer to meet his needs. All right, the first interview takes place. The candidate goes to the nearest telephone booth and calls you immediately afterwards. In step number 11, we debrief the candidate from the first interview. Candidate says, yes, I want it. I like that company. I want to go to work there. Step number 12, we debrief the employer from the first interview. He says, yep, could be our guy. Step number 13, we set up the second interview. And number 14, check references. All the time, check references. Now, there are circumstances where those references should be checked prior to the first interview. And we'll discuss those later. But for the sake of our model today, we are going to assume a second interview offer. And in the case of a second interview offer, there are practical reasons why we want to check those references after the first interview. Okay, the second interview is taking place tomorrow. So number 15, second interview, prep candidate, parenthesis, trial closing. If they make you an offer tomorrow, $42,000, are you prepared to accept? When would you like to start? Number 16, second interview, prep employer, parenthesis, trial closing. Are you prepared to extend an offer tomorrow of $46,000? Paying attention to the numbers. And if he accepts, when would you like him to start? Number 17, confirm the second interview with the candidate and the employer. Second interview takes place. Number 18, debrief the candidate, parenthesis, closing. Remember, we were talking about a second interview offer, so second interview debrief is closing. Did they make you an offer? How much is it? Did you accept? When would you like to start? Number 19, debrief the employer, parenthesis, closing. Did you extend the offer? How much is it? Did he accept? When would you like him to start? And number 20, there's a step here called closing and negotiating. But this step doesn't start here, does it? It starts back in step number 5, when you present the position to the candidate. That's when you start closing him on a number. And it starts back in step number 7, when you present the candidate to the company. That's when you start closing them on a number. But it culminates here in step number 20, which is closing and negotiating, which results in step number 21, which is an offer, an acceptance, and a start date. Hey, this deal is closed. Take a long weekend. Give yourself a raise. Buy a boat. Huh? No, no. This deal is entering deep water right now. The most dangerous interview of all is coming up, the resignation interview. We're going to get right back to business. And step number 22, prep our candidate to resign, resignation prep. Candidate goes in to resign, calls us afterwards. Step number 23, resignation debrief. He says, yes, they tried to get me to stay, but I told them it was finished, final, over with. I'm out of here in 2 weeks. And if that's the case, step number 24, celebrate. Now, recruiters have different ways of celebrating around the country. Some recruiters ring bells. Some recruiters throw confetti. A lot of recruiters drink. I had a recruiter who used to play the Olympic anthem on a cassette every time that he closed a deal, and you should try it sometime. It felt great. Felt just great. Step number 25. Billing prep. Billing prep is call the person you've been dealing with and say, who do I send the bill to? Then call that person, say, please expect the bill, and when can I expect to be paid? State-of-the-art in fee schedules keeps improving. State-of-the-art in fee schedules today stipulates that payment of the fee must be received within 10 days or discounts and guarantees are voided. I hope that you all have that language on your fee schedules. I'm opposed to discounts and guarantees. But if you're going to give them away, at least I want you to have leverage on your fee schedule for prompt payment. In the absence of that kind of leverage, there is the opportunity for a company with a cash flow problem to make you a low priority payable. Number 26, fill out your billing paperwork. 27, stay in touch with the candidate for the next 2 weeks. You know, if his current employer wants to keep him, there's a lot they can do. They can appeal to loyalty, to guilt, to vanity, strong human emotions. Stay in touch with the candidate. Step number 28, confirm that the candidate has started. I know recruiters who routinely stop talking to their candidates after they've made the placement, and they never check to see if the candidate shows up at work. And they almost as routinely get their invoices back from the client companies with question marks on them saying, who's this guy? Stay in touch with them. Step number 29, stay in touch with the candidate and the new employer now that he's gone to work at the new employer. You know, presumably you've done a good job. This candidate's going to grow in that company. Company's going to be real happy with your performance and come back to you. This should be either the beginning of a long-term client relationship or a chapter in an ongoing client relationship. And number 30, get paid. You've earned it. Now listen, these are the steps in the placement process. You should do them all the time. Granted, in retrospect, maybe only 5 or 6 of these steps will have been important. But ahead of time, you never know which 5 they're going to be or which 6 they're going to be. A big biller is going to do every step every time because he knows if he doesn't, he'll lose some deals. And he'll never know which deals he lost. He'll never know which deals he could have closed if he'd done them all. Just be a mechanic. Do every step every time. Attach this list like a flight checklist to every file of every search you're working on and check the steps off as you do them. There's no way you can keep them all in your head with 8 or 9 different pieces of business. Check them off as you do it. Those are the 30 steps in the placement process.